Here's an image right out of the Wild West. The lonely campfire, the only sign of human life in miles of empty prairie. Or here in Arizona, empty desert. The West was never really empty, of course. But its native peoples lived lightly on the land, and the land itself, especially here in the desert, supported plants and animals that were adapted to getting by on not very much. But today, Tucson, just to the south, and Phoenix, 100 miles north of here, are two of the fastest growing cities in the country. What supports the millions of new people is the equivalent of tens of millions of campfires like this. Oil and gas being burned to power the cars and air conditioners, to pump the water and bring in the food. One campfire is relatively harmless, but across the planet, billions of campfires worth of energy is being burned every day. So much, the atmosphere itself is being changed. There's been a lot of guessing about what the changing atmosphere will do to the Earth, to its ability to support life, and to the biosphere we live in. But facts are hard to come by. How do you experiment with the planet? Well, out here in the middle of the Arizona desert is one possible answer. You build and operate a planet in miniature. Another biosphere. BIOSPHERE 2. September 1991. With much hoopla and hype, 4 women and 4 men embark on what is billed as one of the great scientific adventures of the century. With the sort of press coverage once given space missions, the 8 so-called biospherians are shut away inside what is claimed to be a sealed steel and glass structure that covers over 3 acres. Their mission? To be totally self-sufficient in air, water, and food for 2 years.
So it's very important to keep a diversity.
As tourists came to window gaze at the biospherians, problems began almost immediately. Carbon dioxide built up in the air.
Taller yuccas over here that have kind of the scraggly hair, green hair.
The biospherians' farm failed to produce as much food as expected, leaving its inhabitants, like Linda Lay, hungry and weak.
Keep the biological diversity of the planet Earth.
Linda Lay was in charge of the biosphere's miniature rainforest, which was originally intended to remain an unexploited wilderness. So as you started to get hungrier and hungrier, did you find yourself foraging a little more?
Yes. So we were foraging a little bit more and a little bit more, and realizing when we were really hungry that we were in trouble with food, and we started planting more bananas in the rainforest and more papayas. In fact, the reason we have so many papayas right around this little pond is because we wanted more food for ourselves to eat. Our priorities changed. They changed over from the wilderness into producing food for the humans. And I think it's an interesting lesson. It really parallels what's happening on the Earth.
But by the time the biospherians emerged from their 2-year stay, BIOSPHERE 2 had gone from a grand experiment to the scandal-plagued butt of late-night TV jokes. A few months later, its benefactor and sole funder, a Texas billionaire, pulled the plug. Today, under new management, BIOSPHERE 2 attracts fewer tourists. But for the first time since it was built, scientists are looking at it as a useful model of our own planet. Helping convince them is one of its builders, Bernd Zabel. You built it and you were on the crew.
So I had the knowledge, a very intricate knowledge by building it, but also I was in training for 4 years here to be part of the crew, how to operate it. So I know it very well.
Which is fortunate because it's Bernd's job to keep the biosphere running. No one lives in here now, but managing a miniature Earth, complete with a desert, swamp, rainforest, and million-gallon ocean, is a 24-hour-a-day job.
You have something like
and it's easy to make mistakes. So you artificially regulate the rainfall, and you make it a desert rainfall over there?
Yeah, in all these biomes we are able to control the rain, except I show you what happens in the desert where the rain run a little bit out of control, which had an incredible impact. this really doesn't look like a desert. I mean, it's far too green and lush for a desert.
How did it get that way?
We rain too much in here.
One of the reasons the desert got too much rain was that water unexpectedly condensed on the roof at night and then dripped down. And the desert wasn't alone in not quite working out as planned. Biosphere 2's ocean supports a coral reef, but barely. Keeping the ocean's million gallons as clean as real seawater has so far proved impossible.
The ocean is hanging in there, but it's really not flourishing.
Of course, it's the problems of making Biosphere 2 work that make it so fascinating as a model for the Earth. And some of the most intriguing insights it provides are from the things its designers left out. Well, you know what else I noticed that you don't seem to have out in this big open space anyway, is wind.
That's correct.
So that's like a big element that's missing, isn't it?
Which causes a problem for these trees. When you look here, these acacia trees, they have very funny forms. And what we found out later on, that if a tree grows, to harden the tree, it needs wind action. Every time when a tree moves, it builds actually outside what is called a stress wood.
So that strengthens the tree.
It strengthens the tree. In our case here, the tree is growing without any wind, without any disturbance, and they actually become so top-heavy that they break off.
Biosphere 2's builders left out the wind, but they included something I wish they had. These ants are covered. Every time I look down, I got another ant on me, and they're all, look at this, they're all over the place.
Yeah, they're everywhere. Everywhere in the biosphere.
Did you bring them in?
Yeah, they were not intentionally introduced, this species of ant, but they came in with some plants, obviously. It's a rainforest ant.
Like the rainforest ant, the rainforest itself is flourishing. What's it like when it rains in there?
Well, I think I'll just call in some rain. We'll find out.
Good.
Yeah. We have rain in the northwest quadrant of the rainforest. Over.
Knowing how much the producers like to put me in situations like this, I'd come prepared.
We're ready. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, we're ready.
I never had an umbrella in here before.
What kind of a rain would you call this?
This is about the normal rain for the wet season in the rainforest here. It's nice, isn't it?
Very nice. The nicest part is watching the camera crew get drenched.
Yeah.
It's the biosphere's rainforest that is perhaps its most valuable scientific resource. In just 4 years, it has grown thick and lush, providing a textbook example of how vital the rainforests are to the Earth and its atmosphere. Littering the forest's floor are its own decaying leaves.
When this stuff falls to the ground, it starts to decompose. It breaks down into what we see right here, which is leaves that might have some of their matter gone.
Yeah.
It might look really pretty like that. What this leaf becomes when it's like this is it has become carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide is released in the atmosphere and oxygen is consumed. So this leaf, the carbon of this leaf, has now gone into the atmosphere. We're breathing it.
Yeah.
And so are the plants.
Yeah.
The plants are using that carbon dioxide to grow.
Right now, the world's burning of fossil fuels is pumping more and more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere.
Okay.
How plants will respond is a critical question for the Earth's future, and it's one that the Biosphere's new director of science believes his Earth in miniature can help answer.
Biosphere 2 is a unique facility especially suited for these kinds of experiments because we have so many trees and plants under one atmosphere. Not only can we measure this leaf and many leaves of the same plant, but we also have many types of plants in the biosphere. Of course, now we're in the rainforest. Rainforest is obviously important because a large part of the CO2 that's taken up by plants occurs in the world tropical rainforests.
4 years after being shut in here, the air in Biosphere 2 now has much more carbon dioxide than the air outside. Which is why Bernd is heading for the Biosphere's depths, and one of its most astonishing sights. Designed by Bernd, this is one of a giant pair of lungs. This thing moves up and it becomes a dome?
Yeah, this thing, it's an aluminium saucer. It's airtight welded, It weighs 26 tons in itself, and it's connected with a membrane, with a flexible rubber membrane to the outer ring, to the outer tank. So this whole thing can move up and down.
Opening this door for the first time in 4 years, Bernd allows the lung to breathe out the stale air and breathe in fresh air from the outside.
Okay, open the outer lung door.
It takes just 20 minutes for BIOSPHERE 2 to take one great gasp.
Door is closed.
The plan is to set BIOSPHERE 2's carbon dioxide levels at those the Earth is likely to reach in the near future. Then to find out how food production, for instance, will likely change. The research is just beginning, but already BIOSPHERE 2 has provided a new perspective on the world outside. You walk past a plant in the outside world, and you're taking a breath, and the plant in its own way is taking a breath. Well, what do you really think about your relationship to that plant?
I think about it every time, just like with this plant. This plant is producing oxygen that we're breathing. It's using the carbon dioxide that we're exhaling. We're dependent on each other. And that became so obvious inside this small world. Small world's very tangible. We know where the walls are. We know the limits are. We've got our glass exoskeleton on the outside. If you pollute your atmosphere in here, you know about it right away. Outside on planet Earth, we can pollute our atmosphere and it'll end up in our neighbor's backyard. We might not think about it. In here, you think about it all the time.
The thinking inspired by BIOSPHERE 2 is the opposite in every way to the thinking that inspired the Wild West 100 years ago. Then the world seemed to go on forever. Today, we're only too well aware of its edges. From the former Wild West, this is Alan Alda. See you next time.